Want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Hello guys, welcome back to Shonia Studio. Since yesterday there have been a lot of requests for me to discuss the chronology experienced by Donald Trump, former president and also the next presidential candidate of the United States. Well, the incident that befell Donald Trump happened in the middle of his campaign. Luckily, at that time in this incident he was still safe, and only suffered a few injuries. So at that time many of his supporters were grateful for the condition. This incident certainly shocked the international world. Because who wouldn't be shocked? The figure of Donald Trump had to experience such a terrible incident. Besides, Donald Trump is indeed known as one of the presidents of the United States, who is quite brave and very conservative, towards many policies that can be said to be quite controversial, when he served as president. Well, he can also be said to be a figure who is quite respected in America. So in this incident it indicates that above Donald Trump there is someone who is even stronger, or maybe it can be said that his power is far above Donald Trump. So that Donald Trump's position is threatened. But the incident is said to have a conspiracy, that then arose after the incident, namely this incident is said to be a scenario, created by Donald Trump himself, to be able to blame his opponent, namely Joe Biden. And he wants to increase his own electability and then drop Biden's electability. So in other words, some people think that this incident is just a setup, which has been set by Donald Trump's winning team. But not a few also believe that this incident is not a setup, aka the incident really happened. Which one many believe, that this incident and this is because many parties, do not like Donald Trump. Yes, because previously Donald Trump often made controversial policies. Which team? Do you guys believe that this incident was a setup, or do you believe that this incident was real? Well, maybe you don't need to answer now. You have to hear the full chronology, and the oddities that occurred in this case. So let's discuss the incident that befell Donald Trump together. Okay, let's go straight into the chronology of events. So precisely on Saturday, July 13, 2024, Donald Trump had a schedule to campaign in the Butler, Pennsylvania area. So in that area the location is about 30 miles north of Pittsburgh. Well, Donald Trump at that time planned to campaign at a place called the Butler Farm Showgrounds, which is located at 625 Evans City Road, which is about 5 miles from downtown Butler. This is just information. The Butler Farm Showground is indeed often a place for agricultural exhibitions, held annually called the Butler Farm Show. Well, at that time, the place was used by Trump's winning team for Donald Trump's campaign, in order to increase his electability. Donald Trump at that time, when he was present at the campaign, wore a white shirt and blazer and wore a hat with the words "Make America Great Again," which was red. At that time around 6:08 local time, Donald Trump started to go up on stage, accompanied by the song "God Bless the USA." And after that, he immediately delivered his speech, with political promises that he would carry out, if he was re-elected as President of America. It is also known that at that time Donald Trump was talking about illegal immigration that was happening a lot in the United States. Which is indeed currently a matter of concern for the government because the conditions are really chaotic. There are so many illegal immigrants who enter America. Well, when Donald Trump was giving his speech, the conditions were really crowded. There were many people who were pro-Republican who were present at Trump's campaign, so they came there to support the party and support Donald Trump. There was someone in the middle of the crowd shouting, "He's got a gun." Well, then there was another voice from someone shouting, on the roof saying, he's got a gun. Well, after the second shout, the people who were present at the campaign event immediately ran, because they felt panicked and tried to save themselves. Not long after that, the suspect or perpetrator released the trigger of his gun 3 times. So that the hot lead was directly aimed at Donald Trump, who was giving a speech, or in the middle of the crowd. Then the people who then heard the sound became even more panicked, because they were afraid that the bullets would go astray to them. After the 3 sounds of the explosion from the gun began to subside, the perpetrator released the hot lead again 5 times in a row. And the incident was clearly recorded in a video uploaded by one of the witnesses to the incident. Which video shows the moment when the hot lead began to be released. And at 11:06 local time, Donald Trump, who was speaking at that time, initially did not realize the screams from the person who saw the perpetrator carrying a weapon. But when Trump heard the sound of the explosion from the weapon, he realized that in the middle of the crowd there was someone who managed to bring in a weapon and release the explosion of the weapon. If from the video, we saw, Donald Trump was shocked, then he touched the right side of his face. So this part here, his ear, he touched. Then suddenly he immediately ducked to take cover under the podium. Not long after that, his bodyguards, or the United States Secret Service, who were guarding around Donald Trump, immediately went up to the podium to protect Donald Trump from the explosion of the weapon. Then, according to the information I got, yes, this I quoted from CNN, the location of the perpetrator who released the hot lead was outside the campaign location. It's just that the distance of the shooting from the location where Trump was standing was not too far, which was only 150 meters from the point where Donald Trump was standing. Well, Donald Trump at that time remained in a position of cover, followed by protection from his agents or bodyguards, and in the midst of the panic that occurred. At that time the agents coordinated with each other to take Donald Trump away from that place, using a vehicle that had been prepared there, namely a limousine car. Then in addition, agents carrying firearms were also immediately on guard around the stage where Trump took shelter. Then several agents had time to provide information that the perpetrator was immediately paralyzed by officers from the Secret Service. Then exactly at 6:15, when the agents had ensured the conditions were safe and the suspect had also been successfully paralyzed, then they intended to move Donald Trump from the campaign site to a safer place. And Donald Trump was helped to stand up by the agents who protected him. And when he woke up, it was only then that it was seen that Donald Trump had a wound on his right ear with a condition of red fluid dripping and flowing towards his cheek. Then before he got down and left the stage, Donald Trump had time to clench his fist, namely the right hand upwards, and suddenly the action triggered the people who came to the campaign, cheering because they expressed their support for Donald Trump. At that time they thought Trump was so cool, after being shot, so immediately excited again. Well, then Donald Trump also shouted by saying, "Fight," 3 times. Not long after that, Donald Trump was successfully moved and evacuated. Well, he was evacuated using a black SUV to Butler Memorial Hospital for treatment. The hospital is only 11 miles from the campaign site. Then, long story short, around 6:51 local time, Donald Trump's spokesman, named Stephen Chung, said that Donald Trump was in good condition and is being treated in hospital. Well, the statement was released about 40 minutes after the horrific incident. Well, then continued at 08:42 local time, about 2.5 hours after the horrific action. Donald Trump wrote on a platform called Truth Social, where he wrote that he already knew that something was wrong when the campaign was taking place, because he heard a sound like a buzzing sound, then a gunshot, and quickly he felt the bullet hit his body so that he was injured. Well, then many questioned the condition of the location of the campaign when the shooting occurred. Indeed, there is a video showing people who were there panicking when they found out that someone had a weapon located near the campaign location. Well guys, you pay attention to the video showing Donald Trump when he was on the podium. Strangely, in the video, you can check for yourself, the people around Donald Trump did not run away from Donald Trump and save themselves. They seemed to know that the bullets would not hit them. In the writing, Donald Trump also thanked the Secret Service and law enforcement for their actions in protecting Donald Trump when the shooting occurred in the Butler area. And he also expressed his condolences to the victims who died, and the victims who were injured, because of the incident. Well, then at 08:53 local time, Trump's motorcade finally departed from Butler Memorial Hospital, where he was undergoing treatment after being hit by a bullet. And at 11 p.m. Donald Trump finally departed from Pennsylvania for New Jersey, with protection from the United States Secret Service and several police personnel from the state of Pennsylvania. Then for the profile of the perpetrators, based on a press conference held on Sunday, July 14, 2024, an FBI agent named Kevin Rojak said that they had succeeded in identifying the perpetrators of the shooting. And he is said to be named Thomas Matthew Crooks, who is 20 years old. Well, it was also said that someone saw Thomas at the time of the incident. And the agent at that time received information that there was a suspicious figure and was pacing there. Well, then someone saw him climbing the stairs in a building near the campaign location. Well, even though the information was successfully obtained by the agents, these agents were considered too late in acting, because Thomas managed to fire a shot at Donald Trump faster than the agents who wanted to paralyze him. Well, there is a public record that states that Thomas is registered as a member of the Republican Party, but donated $15 to a pro-democratic group in 2021. Well, at the time of the incident, Thomas did not carry any identification, so the FBI used DNA and facial recognition technology to identify him. And according to information I got from the BBC, Thomas is from Battle Park, Pennsylvania, which is only about 70 kilometers from the Trump campaign location. Well, he graduated in 2022 from Bethel Park High School, winning a prize of $5,500 because he excelled in mathematics and science. And he is also known to work in the kitchen at a nursing home, located near his home. Then Thomas was also a member of a shooting club there, called the Clairton Sportsman's Club, for 1 year. And according to information from local people who had attended school with him, Thomas was indeed known as someone who liked to be alone, and was often bullied. But even so, Thomas was very much liked by his teachers at school, because he was a very smart student and motivated his other friends. Well, the motive for Thomas doing this is still under investigation, and Thomas's family is said to be working with investigators to thoroughly investigate this case. Well, then from the information I got, it was said that one person died on the spot in the incident, and 2 people were injured. Well, the victim who died was identified as a man named Corey Comarator. He was 50 years old and came from Surfer, Pennsylvania. Well, Corey worked as a firefighter and he already had a wife and 2 daughters. Then the governor of Pennsylvania named Josh Shapiro said that Corey died as a hero who protected his family. And to honor him, Josh Shapiro ordered the flag to be flown at half-mast. Well, while 2 people were injured, one named David Dutch, aged 57 years, from New Kensington, Pennsylvania, and another named James Copenhaver, aged 74 years, from Moon Township, Pennsylvania. Well, both David and James are said to be in stable condition at this time. Well, then a number of federal and state agencies are investigating what really happened. And how could Thomas be able to access the location where he fired the shots, and what weapon he used in the shooting? Well, but according to the information I got, the weapon he allegedly used at the time of the incident was a Type AR-15 weapon, because the type of weapon was found at the scene, and this weapon is a weapon that is legal for civilians to own in the United States. But the rest is still being investigated by federal and state agencies. In addition, the FBI also asked the public to send information, photos, or any videos that could give them clues about the shooting incident. Well, then the short story of what happened to Donald Trump finally reached Joe Biden's ears, where at that time he was in the Delaware area. He immediately returned to the White House on Sunday, July 14, 2024 to get a briefing from law enforcement. Joe made a statement where he thanked the Secret Service for saving Donald Trump. Joe Biden also said that he was very grateful that Donald Trump was safe and well. Well, I don't know if this is really happy or what, because they are competing with each other. Then in the evening, a press conference was held where Joe Biden made his statement by adding the sentence that political violence, or violence experienced by Donald Trump, was inappropriate. And Joe Biden said that he tried to contact Donald Trump by telephone and wanted to talk to Donald Trump. So the chronology happened like that. Now I want to invite you to discuss the oddities about this case, which is a conspiracy in itself regarding the shooting. So the shooting reminded me of the situation in Mexico during the election period there. After this incident, the news about the shooting of Donald Trump went viral everywhere and even became a trending topic in the United States. However, among the tweets that entered the topic thread, there were several tweets that talked about the conspiracy that caused Trump to be shot. For some reason, some people think that Trump's shooting is part of a conspiracy. Well, it turns out that the answer is because many Americans have flashbacks to the shooting of John F. Kennedy that occurred in 1963, which until now is still often discussed, regarding the conspiracy that occurred behind the incident. Well, that's why people are triggered. People assume whether the incident is also part of a conspiracy. Well, that's more or less the answer. And from the many tweets discussing the shooting of Donald Trump, there are some written by Republican congressmen named Mike Collins and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and there are also some from senators named Tim Scott. So at that time Collins said that the shooting was initiated by Joe Biden, who deliberately wanted to paralyze Donald Trump as his political opponent. Then Greene also said that the Democrat Party wanted Donald Trump to no longer be involved in the United States Constitution, so the Democrat Party would do anything to make that happen. Well, Scott, who is predicted to be a candidate for vice president for Donald Trump, said the shooting was assisted and supported by radical left media and corporate media. But what's interesting is that there are several tweets that do not blame Joe Biden, who logically is very likely to be the mastermind behind the shooting, but instead point out that the shooting was a setup carried out by Donald Trump himself. This was said by people who really hate and do not like Donald Trump. And then about how Thomas could get to the roof. Was the Secret Service negligent and did not sterilize the places around the campaign location? Even though, as I mentioned earlier, if they had received the information beforehand. Well, why didn't they take action right away when they found out that Thomas was preparing to carry out the shooting? Well, this suspicion is reinforced by the many photos that were successfully documented at the time of the incident, where the pose looked very odd, as if it was very set up. Well, you can check the photo yourself. According to your assessment, is it good or not? The photo was taken by a photographer from the Associated Press in Washington named Evan Fukasi. Well, the photographer must be able to capture a moment with the most interesting visuals possible. But many suspect that the situation when the photo was taken was indeed set up.
I want to really see something that said,
because logically, if something like that happened, people everywhere would panic. But Donald Trump can still do something like this. He said, "Fight, fight." Well, then Donald Trump's action of memorizing his hands was considered unreasonable. How could someone who was the target of the shooting think of doing something like that? In fact, if the person was really shot, he should have panicked, had a heart attack, and the audience there would have been distraught. But at that time, the audience saw Donald Trump in a crouching position, and then suddenly he lifted his head. It turned out that a lot of red liquid had come out of his ears and was smeared on his own hands. Well, from this suspicion, they concluded that the shooting incident was a fabrication or setting by Donald Trump himself, to gain sympathy not only for his supporters, but also for the people of the United States. In addition, there is another conspiracy theory regarding this shooting incident. Namely a conspiracy theory called Canon or QAnon. Let's just call it Canon. So what is Canon? So, let me tell you a little about the meaning of this Canon. So there used to be a forum on the internet called Fortune or 4chan where it was a platform for anyone who sent comments and photos anonymously. Well, in October 2017, there was someone with an anonymous identity named Q, who claimed that he was part of the American government, who had access to state security. Yes, more or less like an insider, someone who has an ace card. Has a key. That's where the term Canon or QAnon comes from, namely from the letter Q as his pseudonym, and the word anon, which comes from anonymous. Well, if combined, it becomes Canon. The contents of this Canon conspiracy are about conspiracies that occur in the United States, which are related to politicians there. One of which is a plan that will be carried out by a group of secret governments, against Donald Trump and his supporters. Which is certain, so if you want to simplify it, it's like there is a country within a country. There is a government within a government. The security and intelligence parties suspect that the attempted execution of Trump was carried out by the CIA and accused the people behind it all of being Barack Obama. Then there was Hillary Clinton, then there was Mike Payne, who was involved in the heinous plan. Indeed, there is no accurate evidence that supports this assumption, but many people believe that this theory is true. Moreover, there have been many conspiracies about the existence of a country within a country, that occurred in the United States. Yes, for example, America is a big country, right? Well, in the United States there is another group of people who set up their own government, more or less like that. Well, they usually attack or overthrow anyone who does not agree with their targets and programs, including one of the most stubborn is Donald Trump. So, what do netizens think about this incident? Are there many netizens who are grateful or happy with what happened to Donald Trump, or are netizens on the contrary sympathetic to Donald Trump? Well, the answer is that many netizens sympathize with Donald Trump, many people are increasingly supporting and backing Donald Trump, and what's even crazier, is that many netizens actually make statements as if Donald Trump is Israel's target. They say the perpetrator of this shooting is Israel. Because Donald Trump is one of the presidents of the United States who can make the world peaceful, or as long as he leads the United States, there is rarely war. And even America can be calm with North Korea, can be calm with Russia. They say that, and again there is a narrative about Israel, which says that Donald Trump is the one who can make Israel stop genociding Palestine. Well, maybe there is something you forgot a little about Donald Trump. Is it true that Donald Trump is against Israel? And can he control Israel later? Well, the answer is not necessarily. Because if we go back, maybe we can remind you a little. So according to Aaron David Miller, who is a senior researcher at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, he said that the state of Israel is most likely one of the countries that loves Donald Trump the most, he said. So what netizens said was apparently not approved by Aaron. Because according to Aaron, based on the existing evidence, Donald Trump is the only US president to visit Israel. Most likely is one of the countries that loves Donald Trump the most, he said. Well, what netizens said was not agreed with by Aaron because according to Aaron, from the evidence available, Donald Trump is the only US president to visit Israel on his first foreign visit, and he is also the one who recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Even when he led the United States, he was the one who made the US embassy in Jerusalem. And even Donald Trump also became the first president to pray at the Western Wall of Jerusalem, when he was still president of America, so the other presidents never did. But before that, there were several other US leaders who came there to pray, but their status at that time was still civilians, different from Donald Trump. He prayed there when he was president, and even he prayed accompanied by the Israeli PM directly. Donald Trump also became the first US president to recognize the Golan Heights, which previously belonged to Syria, as belonging to Israel, and even Donald has repeatedly claimed that he is the only American president who is most pro-Israel. He once stated that no US president has done more for Israel than I, said Donald Trump. Well, so more or less like that, all your statements that assume that Donald Trump is a hero, wow, he must be pro-Palestinian and all sorts of other things, even though you also saw Donald Trump meet with Nurmagomedov during the UFC event. And at that time, Khabib also left a message to Donald Trump if he was elected President of the United States later, please stop the Israeli war against Palestine, but that doesn't guarantee everything, because from his background, from what Donald Trump has done, we can see his track record. So guys, that's a discussion about the incident experienced by Donald Trump, and the two conspiracies that are believed to be the motives behind the incident. What do you think? Was this incident a fabrication, or was it not fabrication and was deliberately intended to paralyze Donald Trump? Or maybe there was a personal problem between Thomas, who really didn't like Donald Trump. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Greetings from Shonia Studio.